All right. I'm Ian Rome. I am a teacher in training for lack, or student teacher here from Brock. So I'm working here at Mulock, basically putting in some hours and basically learning how to be a teacher. So with you guys, my background is electrical. I'm a licensed electrician, have been for 39 years. And I'm looking for ways to bring that type of experience to the class here and sort of to teach a little bit more about the electrical trade. Now, how do I flip the slide? I point at you and I go this, or
That's how you do it.
point at you and go that?
Yeah.
So, as it says, we're going to do a multi-lesson. I've got it set up for 6 days of working on EMT conduit. Now, who knows what EMT conduit is, first of all? Where would you see EMT conduit? Do you see any around in this room anywhere? On the back of the walls, maybe? Back here behind the board. This is also EMT conduit. So, with construction, you guys in this shop have done a little bit of residential electrical. And what does residential entail? When I say residential electrical, what do you think of with residential?
Like in homes?
Yes, exactly. In homes and townhouses and things like that, that classes as residential. And when you're getting set up and following the trade and becoming an electrician, there's a choice that you can do. You can be a residential electrician, or what's the opposite, or the part that goes hand in hand with residential? What's another part?
Commercial?
Yeah, you got it. Commercial. Now, what's commercial? Someone describe to me explain what commercial would be. Commercial construction.
Like in other buildings that aren't meant for like living?
Correct. Yep. More sort of businesses, office towers, anything to do with businesses is one thing. What about this school? What would this class is? You guys living in here?
Commercial?
Yeah. It's commercial, which is why you see a lot of conduit around here on the walls that's feeding all the equipment that's in this room. So generally residential is at one level, and you see wire like the white Romex here. You'll see this everywhere through your house. This is generally what they use. Various sizes, it all depends on what the use is, but this is what that is. And it's soft, it's pliable, it's got the white outer layer, you can pass that around. And then when you go to commercial, things get a little bit tougher and rougher. They tend to protect things more because there's more chance of something going wrong in commercial aspects. There's industry involved in that, everything from big factories to little factories. And again, as you said, apartment buildings and bigger buildings and office buildings, there's a lot of people in there, so the standards increase to protect the people. And so generally what you can do in residential, you don't do in commercial, which is why the standard cable for commercial is this BX, and it's armored to protect it, because in houses, what do you generally lose for walls? What type of material? Yep, under the drywall.
Insulation.
Under the insulation. What's the wall made of?
Wood.
Yeah, wood. Wood. Well, when you're doing commercial, you're not running into any wood. It's mostly metal studs. So metal would cut the Romex, but with this stuff, send that around. That's the armored cable. It's encased in a metal sheath to protect it. And that's your standard cable that you would see in commercial. Now, when you move one step further, how do you protect from that? If you want to do multiple cables, multiple circuits from one point to another, what would you do? What would you put it into? I'm going to pick up a hint. You may change the slide, sir. I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's a whole mass of conduit in a commercial building. And this is conduit in its simplest form. Half-inch conduit, it's easy to bend, very pliable, and relatively small. So in a commercial aspect, that's what you'd be using to run circuits. Same thing as the conduit that's back here. It's big for two purposes. One, there's either a lot of electrical cables in it, or the electrical cable that's in it is taking a lot of amperage, so it's big. Because you can get some massive big cables depending on what you're trying to power. So what we're going to do is we're going to work with the simplest denominator, which is the half-inch EMT. And we're going to practice going through some bends. You may slide again. There's the residential and commercial, which you've gone through, which you guys got. You got houses, you got buildings. There's a lot of different specifications between those two, as I said. You know, you got fire alarm, you got fire systems in here. So that's, again, the idea of a commercial is you do get fire systems, you do get sprinklers. Now, some houses nowadays do have sprinkler systems too, but if they don't have that, they at least have smoke detectors and a smoke system that's meant to protect you. One more. There's just some examples of some of the different type of cables. There we've got some residential, we've got the armored, we've got all kinds of different ways. There's a multitude of different cables, and literally in some classes conduit, some classes not, but they all are used in the electrical industry. This is, and how do you bend EMT conduit? Well, there is a handheld bender. And the idea behind this piece is that you will go around and you can make things like this. You can take that straight piece of conduit and turn it into that. So we're going to be later on in the lessons, we're going to be taking the bender and we're going to be taking, there's some straight lengths of half-inch EMT over at the back of the room there, and we're going to do a little bit of conduit bending just to get the feel of it. Now, one of the quiz questions is going to be how big a conduit can you build or bend with a half-inch manual bender? And the answer is you can bend up to 1.25 inches with a manual bender. Now it's considerably bigger than this. It's like 3 times the size. It's got a big shoe out the bottom that basically you use for leverage to bend. After that point, you may switch again. This just goes over the parts. This will go back to this one here. And when you go really big, you've got to go to hydraulic bending systems, where you end up bringing in another machine that basically applies force and can bend like bigger than, well, that's probably, that'd be 1.5 inches, that big stuff there. So that you would not be bending by hand. You'd be bending that either with a machine or you would buy a pre-bent piece, and then you would just connect the pieces together. So we'll see some examples of that, but we're not going to be bending to that level. Again, there's again back to back. When you basically have to go around some things, you've got to put it into a mechanical room, you've got to get the wire from A to B, put it in a conduit, so sometimes you've got to calculate how to do it. You've got obstructions. And when you're looking around, as you go around the shop in the next little while, have a look at some of the conduit that's on the wall and notice what it's doing, what it's going over, what it's going under, what it's going around. It's very flexible and you can do lots of stuff with it. And if you're the first person, if you're the first electrician in a room laying stuff out, it's easy because there's nothing in the way. But if you're the third, fourth, and fifth trade that might be coming in order to do a room, there's a lot of stuff you may have to go around and you can't get them to move it, so you've got to work with it. So thus the bender allows you to make offsets, allows you to make 90s. Keep going. and then you can basically, you build it as it goes. And once it's in and you're complete, then we're going to touch on a little bit of how you get the wire into the pipe. But here's some more examples. PVC pipe and conduit come in all different types and all different materials that are used to make it. Who can guess at some of the material that you would use to make conduit? Aside from the obvious ones like that guy. What's that made of? Anybody? Metal, yep. Metal, steel. EMT is, again, it's soft, it's pliable, it's rather thin steel. And much like these guys, some of the other major things you can get is PVC. How many have dealt with PVC conduit? Anybody? Glued any together for any projects around the house? PVC is probably the next most popular, and it's available in all kinds of sizes too. And what they would use that for is anything to do with wet locations or underground. You get plastic pipe, you do the same thing, you cut it the same way, but in order to attach it and bend it, you either have to heat it up and bend it, or you basically use couplings and fittings and you glue it all together, like, again, and it goes where you want it to go. So if you dig an underground trench, you would use PVC, and that also is conduit. There's rigid conduit, which is thicker steel, and it's made when you want something that's really going to be solid. And for that, you've got to actually thread. You've actually got to use a threader, put thread ends on it, and couplings that all thread on. You'll see an example of that, not really as conduit, but as the sprinkler system. Same idea, that's all over this building. It's all rigid pipe that's threaded, so in order to join it together, you've got to put it on a threader, you've got to make the threads, and then make it all tight. But the same thing can be done with electrical conduit. So yeah, there's PVC underground, feeding different things outside. A lot of times you'll see that under the floor of the building. Before they pour the concrete floor, they will run PVC all over the place to get from A to B or power up a machine over there. So if they knew ahead of time that this shop was going to be laid out this way, they would have come out, and instead of, sometimes it's cheaper to, instead of piping around in the walls and the labor it takes, they would run a pipe under the slab, poke it up where they need it, and then the concrete goes on top. And a lot of times that's what they do in office buildings because it's cheaper than putting it in after, and the labor intensive aspect to put it in, it's easier to put it in the slab before they pour the concrete. So you'll get big pipe and you'll get little stuff like this, which is core line. Anybody seen core line before? So it's a flexible PVC pipe that is pretty good and it glues together the same way, but it's not as good as the solid stuff because somebody steps on this one before the concrete comes on, they can break the end off. Anybody done co-op with any type of concrete pouring or anything like that? The ends can break off of this, and then you got to get it fixed before the concrete comes, or you got trouble. But that's flexible core line, and it's PVC also. Yeah, it bends. Next slide. There's again, when we're going over, we're going to be going through this in a little bit more detail, and that's going to be again, how do you make offsets? How do you get over stuff? And if you look in the bender, you can send the bender around. The bender has marks on it that show you the different degree angles. So it does a lot of the thinking for you. If you want a 30-degree angle, you want a 22-degree angle, you want a 45-degree angle or a 90-degree angle, it's all on the bender itself. And when you lock it in and you pull down and you make the bend, and when you reach that mark where it lines up, you stop, and that's the bend you require. So when you start combining bends, so a 45 and a 45, you're basically going up and over from straight to straight. Now we're going to go into take-ups and how much as you bend something, of course you're detracting from its length, so you've got to calculate that because you want to try and hit the same spot. We're going to go into that and some of the calculations in a bit more detail as it goes too, but these are just some of the basics. Okay? Just like another couple couple ones. And if you go over and look, some of you, I know a lot of you have been over to the one table over there where I've got a 10-foot length of conduit going up, down, in and out and all over the place. That was just an example of, again, what you can do with conduit and how you would bend it and where you can get it to go. And if you've got a pipe, you can do this. So that's literally 1 bend, 2 bend, 3 bend, 4 bends, and up and over something. Now when you do something like that, you can do it big, because you don't necessarily know how big this is you're going over. So you might have to go way up and over to do it. But say, we're just going to be practicing some of that just to get you familiar with the bender, the conduit, and just get the feel for bending it. So it doesn't require a lot of strength, but I've got a couple of big pieces of pipe for some of you might want to take it. Some of you students might want to take a go at trying bending some bigger stuff. And we're going to do that just for fun, but we're going to be working with the 1/2 inch for the start. And then we've got the quiz, which again we're going to do, and it's a no pressure quiz. All the answers are pretty much either here or they're on the internet too. So we're going to do that. We're going to do that a bit. We're going to do that later, aren't we? So don't sweat about the quiz. Question type, lesson, PowerPoint. There's the second one. That's it there. Let's go for this one real quick through here. Different types of conduit. This is just a few more examples of different types of conduit you would run across. And again, for any of you that pursue a career in construction and a lot of different there's the EMT. So all this information is in and you can access on in the file for the lesson. Just goes through the different types of conduit. So you can roll up a bit more. There's the rigid, and as you see, it's all threaded together, and you can get into some cool stuff like trying to bend. Can you imagine trying to keep all these bends the same so it looks good? Conduit's one of those things you can make it look crappy and stand out, or you can make it look like I've seen pieces that look like a piece of art because everything's beautiful and the same bends, and it stands out if you're going to be a tradesman, that you've made something look really neat and cool at the same time as being practical. Keep going, a bit more. There's the intermediate rigid. You'll never run into that, but it's still there. It's kind of a cross between EMT and rigid, not as heavy, not as light, more American type of stuff for that. Then you've got the flexible conduit, which I don't have an example of, but it's kind of this stuff here, except there's no wire in it and comes in big sizes. Some of the machines have some flex. So in areas where you go from a hard to rigid conduit or an EMT, but your machine moves or vibrates, you don't want a solid connection, you want something that's going to be flexible. So that's where you would use flex, and it still classes as conduit, but flexible conduit. Absorbs the vibration. Go another. And if you're going flexible conduit and you're in an atmosphere where there's going to be a little bit of moisture or damp locations, you'll want to go with liquid tight, which means they just take this and they encase it in a bit of rubber. So you end up with a membrane of rubber on the outside which protects it, and there's all kinds of connections and stuff that go along with that to protect it as well. So it's water resistant, keeps the water out. Does electricity and water mix very well? No. What happens usually? Bad stuff. Things blow up, things short circuit. So that's we want to keep the water away. Okay? And then you got this, that's more or less like this stuff. This stuff, although it's set for concrete mainly, you can get all kinds of flexible conduits that are used in the automotive industry, they're used in construction, and you can get them in a multitude of fancy colors. So if you're running wires on your car and you want to dress them up and make it look fancy under the hood, you can get pretty cool little wire conduit that you can do. So all kinds of uses aside from what they're really meant for sometimes. So, but they all class as conduits. and then the wonderful PVC. You again, as you grow, you'll see this all at Home Depot and Lowe's and Rona. They've all got the PVC. It's all got plastic, and there's the glue that goes on that gets all over you, and you glue it all these pieces together. You can build some pretty cool stuff out of PVC as well. So, or if you're, a lot of times what I end up doing is, someone runs a garage, a shed out the back of their house, and they want to get, how do you get the power out to it? Well, that's what you would use, PVC. You dig a trench, you put PVC under, you need to power your pool. That's the type of material you would use in the conduit that you use to get the power out to your pump, to your lighting, your outdoor lighting, all that type of stuff. Landscapers use a lot of this type of stuff for different purposes. Okay? That's the end of that guy. So that's pretty much the introduction to EMT pipe and pipe bending. Are there any questions? Are you guys excited about that? So another little hint is, you've probably seen it out the back, but what we're going to do, the big buy-in for this is that after we do a little bit of the exercise and we get familiar with the bender and make some conduit bends, that we're going to take those pieces that you've bent and we're going to perhaps add or subtract from some of your bends. So you're going to be mentioning with something. You're going to end up something similar to this. Not quite like that, but you're going to end up with a few bends on a piece of pipe, and we're going to take that, and what we're going to do is we're going to repurpose and turning it into this. Now this is just, again, an example. There's a little chart. I scribbled down some ideas of what you can do, but I want you guys to build your own personalized light. So we've got all the pieces for it, but you can be as creative as you want to be at the end, and you can make it. So this one, if I was mounting this one, mounted on the wall like that, then it's a simple downlight. You can put more of a 90 into it, have it shine back at the wall. You can put it underneath, shine it to the ceiling. You can do all kinds of stuff. If you had a picture on the wall, not that it's that pretty for putting on the wall, but you can do lots of stuff with it. At the end, you're going to end up with a light you can paint, decorate, change whatever color you want, and then you can take home your PVC or your EMT light project. So how does that sound? All right? Is there excitement? Well, I got head nodding. We'll work towards the excitement. We've got the acceptance. That's the first thing. So that's what we're going to be doing. Anything else think I need to add? So no questions. Any other conduit questions? Think you can handle the quiz? So the quiz is in there. We'll figure out how they're going to... Right there? Oh, there it is. Yeah, just have some fun for that. And there's, like I said, all the answers are easy to find. Do you want them to do that now, or do you want to do them later? Now. Do it now. Okay. You guys into that? More nods. More nods. Awesome. Good stuff. Okay, guys, see what you can do with that. Perfect. Does anyone need the login for classroom? It's right here. The board with the lesson plan is a couple of drawings I just did of how you can utilize. Everybody look at the piece of pipe you've got. If you've got it bent, you're almost in that similar type of look already towards a lamp. And this is a very simple type of lamp, but it depends on what you want to use it for. If my head is the wall, then that is facing, it's a downlight. But if you want to make it go up, you can do it this way. If you want to shine back at the wall, say it's a step or you're above a door, you want to shine the light down to the bottom of the door, You would take that 90 and increase that 90 in order to basically direct where the light's gonna go. But you guys can be, with this, you've got a little bit, everybody's got 3 bends, 2 offsets, and 190 in their pipe. You've got this whole bit at the back here. You can either put another bend in towards your light, or you can bend it back the other way, and if you don't like your offset and you want to do something else, you're free to use that extra bit of pipe however you want to. You just don't want it out too far. Everything's hanging from this point, so you don't want it too long out, or it'll have a tough time wanting to pull itself down. But the next thing we're going to transition into is how are we going to design, and you guys decide on how you want your light to look. And then bending, we'll do the last bit of bending, which will be tomorrow, of how to basically take it from what you've got in your hand to what we're going to use when we start putting all the other pieces onto it. You guys with me on that? Then afterwards, at the end, there's always the option we can paint them up, paint them nice and black, and it's something you can take home and
Stevie, you're not here on Friday, yeah?
Correct.
Did you just say you're skipping?
No. I'm going to a volleyball tournament.
All right, we're recording again. Thanks, guys, once again, for being my guinea pig class as far as starting this off. So I will edit that statement out. So, morning, guys. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Excellent, excellent. I thought for day 2, we're going to get into some actual conduit cutting. We're going to do some hacksaw work, cut the conduit up, and then we're going to do some bending. So we're going to start with some initial bending. But I thought first we would start with a review of the quiz from yesterday. So let's, and again, it was pretty much all the information was there. So again, what was the answer for number 1? Does anyone recall? 3 different types of material that could be used for conduit.
Yeah, the second one.
Steel, PVC, and aluminum. That is correct. What does PVC stand for? I had to put in 2 words because it is just 2 words. If you put in 3, it didn't like it. It bounced it back at you. Yes, so polyvinyl is 1 word, chloride's the second. And what's the thing, what was the little item with that one that I pointed out, that what happens when it burns? It puts out noxious fumes, chemicals that aren't good for you, because it's basically a plastic. So again, you don't want to be, carcinogens, exactly. You don't want to be breathing in stuff that burns. So you won't find PVC very much in houses. Very little. There's a restriction on how much PVC you can have in a house. I think it's 1 meter is all you can really have once the power, the entrance of your main service. That's it. 4 feet and no more. What does EMT stand for? Anybody? That one is 3 words. Yes, EMT. Yeah, you're scoring big here. Now, rigid, how is rigid steel conduit joined together?
Threaded?
Yep. Threaded because it uses couplings and connectors that all have to be threaded on. So that makes the joints extra strong. It's also used a lot, say, in industrial purposes. There's one more, when you take that rigid, you can also make it explosion proof, which we haven't got into, but that's taking that rigid conduit and actually, when at joints, you fill it with a substance that hardens. Because the fear is that in an explosion-proof environment, like if you were in a paint shop and you had stuff wired in there, any spark could literally cause an explosion. So with explosion-proof, you open up the connection point, you put in this goo, and the idea is it stops the fumes from traveling inside the conduit. So it isolates the fumes from the electricity. But that's the advanced part. Two types of EMT fittings. Anyone guess that one? That is right, too. Yep. Anything else? This was a tricky one. All of the above. They actually are all different types. Because you can get reducers that will reduce the size, and when you're putting fittings on, couplings, connectors, 90-degree elbows are pre-made, so if you're in a tight space, you can actually put an elbow straight around a corner. You don't actually have to bend it, but you would have to pull the wire out and then put the wire back in, and then it gets a little cover onto it. But it's just another spot where you've got to pull wire in, wire out. And how about this one? What is the max degree angle you can bend with an EMT bender? 90 degrees, yes. That's actually true and not true. 90 is what you would want to work with if you were installing stuff, and normally you wouldn't go over it. But in special projects like what we're going to be doing, you can rotate that bender around a little bit and you can actually go over 90. There's a video I didn't include in here with a fellow that bends a complete circle with an EMT bender and just keeps rolling it through. You'll see when you get the feel of it how you can keep on going, and it just basically curls back up and around. So if you're making some crafty stuff with EMT, you can keep doing that. But industrial wise, and what you would do in the trade, 90 degree is your max. What is the largest EMT you can manually bend? How big? 1.25 inches, yep. Anything above that is all built is all bent by hydraulics. They've got different systems to set up to bend big stuff, and yeah, you don't want beyond that. You'll see I've got a 1-inch piece here and then 1-inch bender. So if anybody wants to try and bend that today too, and see if you could put a 90 into the 1.25 inch, you'll see that's pretty difficult in itself. PVC conduit is mainly used in what type of condition or environment?
Underground / dirt.
Yep. The only one is not, there's actually 3 good answers on that one. Underground dirt, wet outdoor locations, and installed in concrete. All work. And again, inside the home, that's the big no. What are 3 names for types of common conduit bends? Anybody find any on that one? There's a couple tricky ones in there. It's actually yeah.
First one?
You got it. 90 degree and offset in the saddle are common. The zigzag is not really one. Box offset is one. A back-to-back, a stub up, box offset, yeah, it could have been number 3 too. Radius bend, not really. Drop bend, no. Extended bend, no. Those are just ones I made up. What does the arrow on the handheld manual bender, EMT bender, indicate?
The start point.
You got it. Excellent. So again, how many of you guys got most of those right? Did it score for you pretty good? Yeah. So just keep some of those things just keep in mind as you're going through, because there'll be a little bit of talk on those. Now, how do I get out of this?
You want to run the video?
Yeah.
Today I'm going to show you how to use this simple hand tool to bend metal conduit into awesome builds like this.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
There's lots of videos
Hey everybody,
online
my
about
name is
this
Dave.
stuff.
Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you how to bend EMT conduit. EMT conduit is an ordinary metal tubing you can get at your local hardware store, and it makes a great DIY building material as well. Being able to bend it is really useful and helpful, both for practical and fun DIY projects. It might seem intimidating to bend metal tube like this, but I promise you I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. And if you've done it before, I'm going to show you some tips and tricks so you can get it done a little bit quicker and better. The tool we're going to use is this EMT conduit bender, which is a super great value. It's less than $35. You can pick it up anywhere. Electricians use it all the time. And there's a lot of ways to bend metal pipe, but this is by far the most economical and simple way to do it. It has a cast die on the head of it and a long handle, and what you do is you place the conduit into the bender like that, and you're going to apply leverage through the handle, and then this foot rests, and you're going to push down, and then it bends the conduit up against a flat surface. I want to show you some of the markings on the head of the bender so you know what they mean. The first one is this arrow here, and that's for aligning where you're going to put the bend in the conduit. And if you want the bend 12 inches from the end, you put a mark there, and it makes sense to put it all the way around. So no matter how it's oriented, you can line it up exactly with that mark, and that's where the radius is going to start. Then, if you want different angles, you've got these marks here that you're going to align the conduit. So as you bend, if you want a 45 degrees, you just keep bending until the conduit is parallel with that line. And you can go all the way up to a 90-degree bend here. Here's some other things. This is obviously for a 3/4 inch EMT, and it has a 6-inch radius. So that's what that's saying right here. Here's a piece of conduit that I bent earlier with this bender. And if you can imagine the center of that.
Now, when he says a 6-inch radius, that's because what he's bending right there isn't 1/2-inch EMT, it's 3/4. So the radius of the material that you'd use to make the bend is 6 inches. So from start to where it hits 90 degrees, you use 6 inches. So, but if it was a 1/2-inch, you'd only use 5. So when it comes to start measuring in order to place conduit in different positions, you need to know how much does it take up, because I'm going from this post down to the floor and I'm going around something. If you get the mark in the wrong spot and you bend it, you'll be short, or you could be long. So it's just something as you calculate how to get around stuff, and it goes up exponentially. So it's 5 inches for 1/2 inch, 6 inches for 3/4. It's 8 inches for 1 inch, and then literally, I can't remember what it is, 11 for 1 1/4 inches. That's how the radius extends and eats. We're recording.
Really good, so
we're recording
let's keep
on
up.
camera, so.
First episode.
I know, and I thought it was really good.
Oh yeah, look at this.
Like,
Stevie's
All
there.
right.
They took a video of us and Dane wasn't even in that.
Okay, guys.
Morning, guys. How are you doing today?
Wonderful. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. We were talking, and it looked like you guys had some fun yesterday. Did you enjoy the conduit bending?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got, we were doing the practical bending where we did the offset. That was great. Some of you still haven't got to that point yet, so first thing we're going to do is, once we get going back with the conduit, is that those that haven't bent their offsets can jump on and do that. The guys that had the 3/4 pipe, I got more 1/2 inch, so there's a couple piece sticks for you of that, because the light project is based on the 1/2 inch conduit. And some of you were having fun trying to bend the 1 inch conduit, and we're asking, remember the stat we were talking about of the biggest you can bend with a hand bender? That's the bender for the 1 1/4 inch. And in order to get the leverage to do it, this step flexes. So as you bring it down, you put it into a different position to pull. And it's heavy. You can come around, I'll put it on the table, and you can feel the weight of it itself is probably close to 40, 50 pounds itself. That's the big guy. So you were also asking, so what happens when you get beyond the 1 1/4 inch? How do they bend the pipe? So we've got a couple videos just about that. Get back out of there. How do I get back out of here? If I hit that, am I gone?
Yeah, don't hit that.
Don't hit that. If I get back to the... that'll do it. That'll do it. Thank you. No problem. All right. So this is a big electrically driven but hydraulically powered. It's basically, there's many versions of a big hydraulic bender. So this guy, I think you've got 3 or 4 inch in there. And when you go up, you can see it's a big hydraulic ram that's pushing down and pulling the conduit through the slide, which is, as you can see, bending it. You can see variations of this at a lot of muffler shops. The EMT conduit and muffler tube is not much different. Muffler pipe is a little bit thinner and easier to bend, but they have a version of this type of machine too for when they're doing custom exhaust work. Now that one you'd put a level on it, or you'd measure it after in order to see that you're hitting a 90. It all pulls apart, and you have different pieces, different shoes like this guy, and different slides for the different size pipes. So that's when you get in construction-wise on a big building, and you were doing some main feeders or some other larger pipes at the building, some of them that run up through the floors. That's what you'd end up using. And another little one we'll cut short. This is the new technology that's available out there
Introducing
now.
the 855 GX IntelliBender from Greenlee. It's the most durable, cost-effective, and most feature-rich programmable
So
bender
it's a
on the
sales
market.
pitch.
It's been engineered and designed with a rugged exterior for the most demanding environments, with an absolute encoder-based control system on the inside, making the 855 GX the most versatile, most dependable, and most
And probably about
intelligent electric bender on
$25,000
the market.
if not more.
This is Greenlee's most advanced programmable electric bender, with all the capabilities to accomplish even the
Full
most
screen,
complicated
so you
bends with
program the whole
ease and
thing in.
speed. It can bend 1 to 2 inch rigid, EMT, or IMC with just one shoe, featuring smart sensors that know exactly what diameter conduit and type you're going to bend, and automatically factors spring back for any angle. This bender comes with both a robust pendant controller and a state-of-the-art LCD interface. It allows the operator to easily program, save, and transfer.
So this is
multiple
what's happening
bends
in the
via a
industry.
USB
Even
drive,
this
making
aspect
this
of the
unit
electrical industry
invaluable on
is
jobs
going
that
high
demand
tech.
many bends and many types of bends. On the outside, the 855 GX features a more rigid frame and drivetrain construction to ensure consistent bending performance over the life of the bender. And for convenience, the GX comes with built-in storage, a braking system, and forklift tubes for greater flexibility and mobility around the job site. Inside, the patent-pending control system uses current-limiting technology designed to draw the right amount of power and protect the motor and electronics. The 855
This would be
GX
ideal
has an
because it's
absolute
programmable.
encoder-based
If you
system
had to do
with
multiple
bending
bends that all
tables.
needed
With
to be
this, the
exactly
unit
the
always
same,
knows the
this
position
you
of
would
the bending
program
sheet,
in, save
automatically
that
accounts for
program,
spring back,
basically,
and can
okay,
communicate
bend the
bend
next
marking
one, hit the
dimensions,
program again, and
helping
it would
the
bend
operator
in
increase
exactly the
repeatability
same
and
each time.
productivity and reduce wasted material. The electrical system is a solid-state system that eliminates arcing and the potential of relay failure common.
We're not gonna worry too much about that. So how many of you have left to do some half-inch bending? Some of you got going, you need to do it, okay? There's a few pipes around. Okay, I'll do the opposite. How many of you managed to bend a piece of half-inch pipe? Okay, the vast majority. Okay, so when we get back, which will be shortly, to the benders again, anybody that hasn't got their piece of half-inch pipe bent, there's some straight ones there that haven't been done. Jump onto those and get your 30-degree bends made. For those that have got their 30s, just like this guy, done, what I'd like you to do next is, however you want to do it, but from the line here, the 8-inch line for most of you, from that point, go over about another 8 inches. Mark the pipe, and then bend a 90, a full 90. Now it's up to you which way you want to do it. I would try and keep it straight up, straight down, but bend it down this way or bend it up. It's up to you how you wanna put that 90 in. So everybody, there's gonna be a couple variations to the pipe. Then once we get that 90 in, then we're gonna start looking at, okay, what can we do? And then we're gonna start thinking about the design aspect of how we're gonna put together our light. Does that make sense to you guys? You ready to bend a little bit more? Is there any other questions about conduit or conduit bending at this point? Anything we did yesterday? You guys did really well. I didn't, as you said, I didn't see anybody on their cell phones yesterday. You were all you all had your pipe and you looked like you were proud of your pipe, and it was good. There's some good bends in there, some pretty good and straight bends. So how about we jump right back on the conduit? You in for that? Hands on? All right, let's go and do that. So again, anybody that hasn't bent half-inch pipe yet, grab a bender, grab the half-inch bender. There's the 4 of them sitting there. Get onto that. And for those looking at the 90s, then we'll go through the process of the 90s. 8 inches from your last mark. You love so much. Watch again, no whacking people in the head with your pipe. No, I wouldn't say that. Yeah, not in the back either. Okay, it'll be in the, let's see what ends up being left. And then, you didn't bend one yet? Okay, we'll get to you. It won't take long to catch up.
I'm saying 5.
And not everybody here, so. I'll use Lucas's one as an example. Okay, so how many of you were thinking of doing a wall light? Basically like our demo, attached to the wall, going down like that, okay? You've all got it, you got a place at home, you think that might work? Okay, there is, as Mr. Croucher and I were talking about, the other idea would be we can turn this very easily into a lamp. So, because again, this is the wood shop and this is construction, we can easily go back transition back out of electrical and back into wood very easily by taking something like this or the big block there, and we can very easily, that could become a plug-in lamp. So that could be, if we work on a base, then when it comes to this 90 up here, you would just increase that 90 and then make it point down a little bit. So as long as your base is heavy enough to support it, we can build lamps as well. So if anybody wants to go that direction, then there'll be sort of an extra little time at the end where you can work on what you want to do with some wood. So it doesn't have to be wood, it could be anything you can think of, because we could drill that, put the cord down and through, and have a plug-in in. So if anyone's game on that, then think of that as you're deciding how much of your pipe you're going to be cutting off. So everybody's got a pipe in their hand. You didn't find George? You've lost George? Okay.
The other thing you can do is stack of books. When I was any old recycled books, if you're a book lover, a stack of books and you can attach the base with books.
Did ever hear that one? Old books. You glue them all together.
Right? Another option.
Another cool little lamp.
Recycle. Right? Whatever you look in the recycling can.
Is it on the stick? No, it's just on the metal.
For yours?
No, it's
Oh.
That's my name on it.
Didn't you do the funky? Oh, you did the funky double bend.
Yeah.
It'll be round.
Just make sure that your names are on them.
Yep. So for those of you that have decided what you're going to do, look. Everybody take a look at their bend. How are they? Hold your light right now the way that you envision it being either a lamp or some from the wall. Almost. So where's the wall plate? Where's the base plate going to be? Hold your base plate up like this. and then where your shield is going to be. So hold it as if it's stuck to a wall or a lamp, whichever you want. You're thinking lamp.
I don't know yet.
Okay, you don't know yet. That's all right.
I mean, high up in the wall.
So what do you got? You're going, which end is this?
I think the light go over here.
Bend it down, so coming up as a lamp. You're thinking lamp? Okay, we got a lamp guy. That's excellent. That'll be fun. Okay, so now keep this idea in mind of which way you're facing, because what we're going to do now is cut off what you don't need. So if you've got an additional bend to make to do your lamp, then that's what you're going to do next, is do your extra bends, a 90 or full 90 or a 30 or 45 or whatever you envision it being. If you're just going for the wall lamp, or again, you've got a good end and you've got a bad end, you're going to cut your bad end off, so get the hacksaw or the saw, and work your way back down to just the piece that you're going to need for your light. So that's job one. Bending, if you need additional bends, you're going to bend them, and if you don't, then you're going to mark and you're going to cut it off. Keep in mind that you don't want it hanging out. You don't want to take a 10-foot length of pipe and have it out too long, because you'll end up with too much weight hanging. Same with your lamp. You don't want it way out here. You could put it way out here, but the further out and away you are, the more of a base, the more weight you're going to have to hold it to the ground. Otherwise, it's going to fall over, and we don't want your lamps to fall over. Everybody clear on that? Any questions? All right. If you've got a bend, grab a bender, you can bend. If you're ready to saw, do your marking. We'll find wood. It can't be too far away.
Just double check that your name's on your piece, because you didn't grab the wrong one on accident. So some have no names on this.
Let's do this again. Double check. When you're double check. Got it. Yeah.
So once you bend it, everything.
Yes. Bend first, then cut. Because if you cut before you bend, the conduit gets harder to bend the shorter it is. So you guys all bent the 90. You saw how much effort it took to bend the 90 to bend the offset. It is virtually impossible to bend a pipe that's this long. The shorter it gets, the harder it is to bend. When you've got the length, you've got the mechanical advantage, and you've got your body weight working with it, it makes it easy to bend. So if you need to bend first, cut second. And don't worry if you catastrophically mess up and we got issues, and you can't save it, we've got some extra pipe, so we can do it again. So for the guys that missed yesterday, we're going to put you on the fast track too. So. All right? Any questions, just ask me and Mr. Crozier, and we'll help guide you along too. So, sound good? All right, guys. Let's go. I'm going to say break. Well, unless it's this one that someone decided.
Where you going?
Yeah, let's forget it.
Because like,
Did someone abuse yours?
this stands up there.
Is that yours?
Oh, good thing we got action. Okay, back.
I think there's a couple shorty bits right there.